One of Hideki Kishida's most noticeable traits was that reading anything on his face was almost impossible. His steely equanimity remained intact under nearly any circumstance, including a sudden ambush by smugglers. Now, however, he had raised his voice noticeably, which to those who knew him well indicated that the police chief was out of control. Few people on the station knew Kishida as well as Delmain Backwater did. "Look, Del, there's a limit to everything," Kishida said, looking straight into the older Backwater's eyes. "Just because you're the direct heir to the station's self-appointed savior doesn't give you the right to do whatever you want here. The wild days of war are long gone, and you'd better back off a bit, damn it, or I'll take you seriously." Delmain slammed his fist on the table. "What the hell, Hideki? You come here to me and accuse me of what? That my men were attacked? Including my son, by the way. Are you out of your damn mind?" Kishida stepped toward the table, and Delmain jumped to meet him. Train, who was standing a little to the side, stepped forward, ready to break them up. However, Kishida and Delmain held back. Two old, hardened wolves, they knew when to fight and when to keep their emotions down, no matter how much anger was stirring in their hearts. "I know that almost nothing happens on the station without your knowledge," Kishida said in a slightly lower tone. Train decided that was a good sign and relaxed a little. "Your sign about the repair and logistics business can only fool idiots. Backwaters have always been and will always remain the power on the station, and if that power starts a war for territories, it won't just be bad for them and their opponents, but for the whole station." Del exhaled slowly, and Train realized that his father had dealt with the outburst of anger and was already thinking of ways to turn the situation to his advantage. It was like a chess game between two grandmasters who had each made a rash move and were now considering whether the moves had damaged their position on the board. "Hideki, you think I don't realize that?" Delmain said. "Things have been bad enough for us lately without it. Besides, you know as well as I do that we've always tried to keep order on this station, not start bloodbaths. I swear, I have no idea who's behind these two attacks. You probably know more than we do by now." It was an unmistakable hint, and of course, Kishida understood it. The police chief sighed heavily, waved his hand, and pulled up a chair. Everyone sat back down at the table. "I'm sorry, Del. I guess I did overreact a little," Kishida said. "You see, I really do know a lot more than you. All of you." He covered his eyes and was silent for a few seconds, gathering his thoughts. There were not two attacks, but three. Train quickly glanced at his father and shook his head. They had already checked on all the other ring members currently on the station. Everyone was fine. No one had had any bad incidents, except for a tiff with a squabbling neighbor. Of course, everyone was now alert and on their guard. No one would go into dodgy hoods alone without checking with the ring. "Don't bother," Kishida said, though it was as if he wasn't even looking at the silent conversation between the Backwaters. "You have nothing to do with the third case. At least, I hope not. Two of my men were ambushed when they arrived on a call about an abandoned ship in Dock 11, Tolman and Chatwega. They're both alive, but Chatwega's got serious burns. Some old garbage went up in flames. It's been a long time since I've had a crack at those smugglers. They've been cluttering up the docks." No one answered, but Train knew precisely what was on everyone's mind. A planned attack on the police was a serious thing, and such incidents always had dire consequences. Sure, every now and then, some junkie in the rot gut or some drunken smuggler would try to poke a cop with something sharp, but that was different. "Another Ullerian army turret?" Train asked, breaking the heavy silence. "Yes." Kishida looked at him carefully. Train shrugged his shoulders. "We got a close look at few things before the cavalry arrived," he said. "You always have time for closer looks." Kishida grumbled, unhappily. But this time, it's for the best. If you really don't know where this bad wind is coming from, and I'm now inclined to believe that you don't, then, as much as I hate it, we'll have to act together. At any rate, at least coordinate our efforts to some extent. Delmain thoughtfully fiddled with a trinket he'd taken from the shelf beside his chair. It was a miniature model of the station, as it had been in its heyday. Clean, neat, with no ugly sprouts of self-building here and there. To be honest, I thought we could do it ourselves, he said. I thought it was our internal matter, and there was no need to involve the official authorities. But now I think I agree with you, but with reservations. Kishida grinned. I'm not going to demand that you immediately show me all your black accounting and all your schemes for illegal shipments of whatever you're hauling in and out of the station all the time. I mean, I certainly wouldn't mind slamming shut your shop once and for all. But not at that cost. I have a feeling that whoever is behind these attacks wants to rock the boat as hard as possible so that everyone will drop overboard. What's the point? Klaus spoke up for the first time. Until then, he had been sitting there, picking grimly at his fingernails with a small pocket knife. Ullerian heavy weaponry is some serious shit. If word of it gets out to the wrong ears, the station will be in the crosshairs of the military and counterintelligence. They don't work the way we do. Half the station will go to prison and forced labor in the colonies. The rest will be squared up and made to walk the line. By the way, isn't that what you've been trying to do for God knows how many years? Kishida shook his head. Not at all. You've got it right. But there's no place for me in this military utopia either. I'll go to some dung and hay-smelling planet to catch cattle thieves and exhort drunks. But most importantly, the military never goes anywhere permanently. They'll come to the station, do a total cleanup, and then they'll get bored and leave it to its fate. All so neat and shiny. And ready for consumption. Delmain nodded. For whoever organized the attacks, or even for whoever was pulling the organizers' strings, looks like these guys, whoever they are playing for keeps. Then we have a deal? Kishida stood up and extended his hand to Delmain. He also stood up and shook the police chief's hand. I guess so. If there are any further questions, we'll deal with them on the go, and we'll keep each other informed. I need to take a closer look at what's left of the turrets, Klaus said. I take it you've got all three already? Kishida grimaced like from a toothache. That's evidence in an official investigation. How am I supposed to let thugs from the most... Okay. He waved his hand toward the menacingly grinning Klaus. Come to think of it, if anyone on this piece of metal knows anything about Ullerian weaponry, it's you. I'll see what I can do. Do you have any ideas yet? I do. As a thug with a lot of experience with Ullerian heavy weapons, Kishida grimaced again, I noticed that the turrets weren't set up very well. Simply put, whoever had installed them did a really shitty job, like a complete and utter noob. If a professional had done it, you wouldn't be talking to me right now. You'd be looking at my charred ass in the morgue. Kishida froze in place. Damn, I hadn't thought of that. What's in it for us? Maybe whoever's behind this got their hands on this weapon completely by accident and couldn't find enough experienced people willing to work for them, Train said, and didn't risk hiring veterans for fear they'd turn him to military predators. Or waste him themselves, Klaus added happily. Or he's a veteran who hired a noob for a diversion, Delmain said. Let's not go to our favorite tarot deck. We need to look for solid information. I'll contact my people, Klaus said. Maybe someone heard something. Kishida looked at him intently. Which people do you consider as yours? He asked casually. All of them, Klaus said, smirking. And I do mean all of them, on both sides. Kishida just shook his head, waved goodbye to Delmain, and walked out. I didn't know you had ties to the Ullerian veterans, Train said. I thought you hated Ullerians. Klaus patted Train on the shoulder. Boy, if life were so simple, we wouldn't be puzzling over who has tried to fry us, because I would be dead for a long time by now. Train, you'll have to fly to the Celestial Temple, Delmain said. I can't leave the station right now, and Quan won't listen to anyone else. Just take someone with you, anyone but this freak. He nodded at Klaus. I don't want to go there anyway, Klaus shrugged. Too much stench for me in there. I'll check in with Shank and Kaylina, Train said. It's a few days' flight to the Celestial Temple, and Kaylina's arm will heal as nicely on the way as at home. The floor beneath their feet shuddered, and the framed pictures on the wall swayed, supported by the clinking of glasses and bottles at the bar. A moment later, the air rattled with a muffled, resounding boom. What the hell? Klaus said, puzzled. At that moment, the door to the office swung open, and one of the workers from the workshop that serviced the station's skimmers stormed into the room. He looked completely insane. Take it easy, Tarky, Delmain said. Did you see a ghost? What happened out there? Someone speed crushed into the repair dock? Tarky, a tall, skinny guy barely in his 20s, took a breath and stared at the older Backwater. Chief Kishida just got blown up, he said.